conversation, any communication, that's how just I essentially grew up, is something that you use to make the case or help explain whatever it is. Data used to be pretty big for me. And so as I made the transition, this is something that was always familiar. Now, what we are looking here is a fancy version of what we always got. It's not something, this is a much simplified, easier, nicer version of information. That being said, yeah, see, it was, sorry, I excited him too much with my conversation. That being said, this is good, but I think our Bay East report, or for that matter, what Alam publishes. By the way, until Bay East, I always used to use what Alam has been publishing, right? That's a wealth of information already. We're not going to cover that today because we've touched upon that, and Alam can always talk about that, and we've talked about it many times. But what we will do is we'll just go through some of this. This is, like I said, it's pretty easy. We can actually, then we don't need an hour. But what I thought was we can also look at one of our base reports, right? Because that also has a lot of information. By the way, just so that you guys know, and I don't know if Harshita is, if I want to switch to the other report, how do I do that?
Hey everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, what? Okay, so you okay.
Five?
Yeah, come.
I just need one more report.
What do you need?
Slack. I'm very bad with
Slack?
Yeah, Slack.
I'm so slack.
So while they're doing that, so typically there are three things besides the other report that Alam has been creating. One is, of course, this one. The second one I want to show you is the Bay East report. Now, Bay East, again, just to give you a distinction. Okay, there we go. Can you do that?
What?
You're trying to present, right? As in.
Yeah, present. Give me a
Um, Bay East obviously covers our area, so we don't have something similar. Maybe there exists, I don't know, for, let's say, South Bay. Our reports do cover the ones that get published by KW Advisors, gets published for a lot of different cities, right? So that's one difference. So you guys need to sort of, when you're talking to your clients, you need to sort of be aware of what's available and what the differences are. So one is we'll touch upon KW Advisors report, we'll touch upon what's available in Bay East with the caveat that it's only available for the cities that Bay East covers. And then I don't have anything here with me, but we also, through KW, get what is called as the neighborhood report, which is the neighborhood nurture. Now, I don't have anything on this computer. I have on mine. We can always talk about that later. That's another slice of the information, because that goes off of our partnership with Nextdoor. Nextdoor, for those, hopefully you're all familiar, but if not, it's another sort of company / media that talks about real estate or other information related to the neighborhood. That's beyond its neighborhood groups, anything and everything that pertains to a neighborhood. But they have defined neighborhoods very differently, because they have, for example, in Fremont, they have 15, 20 different neighborhoods, right? I live in what is called as a Paseo Padre neighborhood. Someone decided to name a slice of our neighborhood as Paseo Padre. So they have different neighborhoods, and the data that they publish is for that neighborhood. That's a context, because if you're sending these emails out to your clientele, taking that neighborhood nurture report, it will look very different. That information in that will look very, very different than the couple that we are going to see here today.
So the neighborhood nurture report is the one which is on command?
It gets, yeah, if you've set it up on command as the smart plan, it gets sent out. Yes, that's the one. And that goes really off of neighborhood, the information that they pull. So the slice and dice of that is very different than what we're going to see here, which is at a city level. Right?
Abhi,
Yeah,
you say base report is our area, is that Tri-City? or
it's
just-
all of it. So if you go to Bay East, it's all the cities that the Bay East Real Estate Association covers. That goes from cities up north,
Get this online?
Berkeley, and I think a few
Online.
cities
Where did you get
beyond,
this?
He shared that.
to I think they go all the way
There is
to
somewhere
Oakley.
It's online in the
I
base
don't know if they
also.
cover Brentwood. I believe they
Yeah,
do.
Brentwood.
Brentwood is covered, right? So it's everything.
So this
All
base
these
report-
cities that we covered. So no Milpitas, because Milpitas comes under Santa Clara, right? So it's Fremont up all the way to Berkeley and that side, and then on the east it goes all the way to Oakley, Brentwood Road. Right? It's all the cities in between. They have
Pretty much Alameda and Contra Costa.
Alameda, Contra
You
Costa.
don't have to do that, it's a totally
Um,
different setup. Hold on. I'm sure we'll be able to.
That's okay. I mean, let's
Yeah,
just
we are
focus
fixing
this,
that
and
because
then
that's a different part. Let me
what
give
we
the
can
printout
do
of
is
this
if
one.
everyone has a computer on their desk, then we can just
We
figure
can
out a way
print- We
to.
can print it out too.
It's okay. I mean, if everyone has a computer on their desk, we can just figure out how to go, and I can walk you through that. So with this specific report, Diana, how do I go back to this one? Okay. Right. So just again, have you guys ever seen this report?
Yes.
Right? Have you used this report ever?
No.
In some form, shape? Have you even, so you get the report but you don't open it ever? Okay. This one is for the Fremont area. So like I said, I think KW Advisors does provide, they have done a great job. They provide it for, I think, pretty much every city in sort of the mainstream Bay Area. They even do for Southern California, but that's probably not of interest to most people here. Right, so I think what's important in this is, depending on what that report is, again, I would have loved to have my computer, so that we can, I don't know how best to do it. Anyhow, we'll figure it out. This one is the East Bay report. East Bay report covers what they call as Fremont. Now again, keep in mind, Milpitas otherwise doesn't come in East Bay per se, but they have introduced that in this report, which is fine, which is great, right? The good part with this is you can see again, they have all of these cities. Now again, their flavor is a little bit different than Bay East.
So is Milpitas in Bay East or are they in?
No, they are in Santa Clara.
Santa Clara.
No, this is our KW Advisors report, right? So KW is sliced, that's what I'm saying, right? So depending on the report or who's publishing it, the slices are different. Next door looks very different. KW Advisors looks very different. And then Bay East is really the association report.
The data is different, the source, what they gather is different.
The source is always the same, which is,
MLS.
well, mostly, because I have seen some differences, and I'll talk about that. But thankfully, they're in the margin of error sort of a difference, right? So it's okay. But typically, they do say that the source is always sort of the Realtor Association data. There is a slight nuance. Again, I think it might be a timing thing of how they do it, right? Just going back, so now again, keep in mind, when we look at Bay East defines East Bay differently than how these guys are doing it. These guys are only covering in their sort of East Bay Fremont report. I don't know what they exactly call it. We can actually check. I think they call this Fremont area. So they have I think they have another one for Oakland. They have another one from San Francisco. Of course, San Francisco does not come under Bay East. So this is what they cover in their report, right? Again, for most part, our business, for most of us, this might be good enough, right? But if not, just figure out which of the reports that they send. And Harshita sends out an email. Now Harshita only sends it out for Fremont, right? You were going to say something?
No, they haven't included Dublin in this.
They haven't, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's included in another, I think, in another report, right? So the underlying email actually that Harshita and these guys get, they actually have a few more reports. Harshita ends up as a service for us, sends only the Fremont area, assuming that most of us do business in this, but there are other reports that they send. Because I requested all of them because I do want to send it out to my clientele, which is spread across different areas, right? Now the beauty of this one is, again, while they provide all of this to you, you don't have to scroll through every page of it, right? You can just go to the one that you want. You can, in a way, I use that in my messaging to some of my clients to say, hey, you know what? You may want to use Fremont, but if you just want to compare with some of the other cities and what's happening, see, because a lot of the folks that we work with are reacting to information they're seeing in, what they're reading, what they're hearing, right? They may not really be aware of what's happening. Plus, real estate, as they say, is local. So what's happening in Fremont, in fact, for that matter, what's happening in, say, Mission is very different than, say, what's happening in Arden, right? So it can change. But at least this is a good city-level information, and if they want to compare, say, what's happening in San Ramon to Fremont, again, it's a pretty easy way to navigate. You just have to, say, click on it, and it takes you to that specific, area, right? Now, in this case, like I said, they have simplified it. So if you now compare with that copy that you got, these guys have really simplified. They've taken some of the big pieces of information, if you will, and sort of published that, right? And they have done a great job because they do this for the single family, and then they do this for townhomes, condos, which this is how actually even Bay East, this is where they're uniform in the sense that Bay East calls it detached versus attached. There are two reports. Some of you might have the Bay East login. If you can just open Bay East on your computers, bayeast.org or something, and log into your account, then you can go there subsequently. But they have Bay East always for their cities. They publish attached, which is townhomes, condos, and detached reports for those two segments. Same thing these guys have done, right? Condos, townhomes, that's the information, and then they sort of do this for, again, single family and condos, again, taking that two information pieces and sort of laying it out across, right? Now, towards that, I think, again, it's the same thing, but essentially, my focus at least, and by the way, some of this is how I process. What I'm sharing with you is what I process. You may have some other questions that I may not have focused on as much. For me, my focus in my conversations has been essentially on these three numbers here, right? Or especially these two. Because, in a way, this number kind of builds these numbers in it, right? Months of inventory, again, we've discussed in some of our past meetings, but months of inventory is important because that really tells you what's available, right? What's available. So in the past, and I know, Alam, you've explained this, and we've talked about this, it basically says if there was no new listing to come on the market today, the existing inventory, how long will it take to consume, right? And that's obviously driven off of how many homes are selling, how many listings are coming. So that's what is governing this number. And a 0.6 number, now again, it all sort of depends what you read, who you listen to. What I have always internalized in my mind for our area, and this is broader Bay Area, some numbers may be up and down, but if you're at 3 months of inventory, this number is, let's say 3 months, not 0.6, but 3 months, then you are in a market that is essentially 3 months to, say, in my mind, 4 to 5 months. That middle thing is a market that is a balanced market. What does the balanced market mean? A balanced market means both sellers and buyers have an equal opportunity, to compete in that market, right? It will not be one of the markets where you'll have crazy number of offers, above asking offers. It's a market that is giving an equal opportunity to both sides. Okay, that's how I've internalized it.
So 3 to 6 or 3 to 5?
I have done 3 to, again, pick your number. It really, at that point, it really doesn't matter. And we've never, in the Bay Area, there are very few instances, rare instances, at least since I have started. And I have seen those, it doesn't matter. Again, to me, I do not really care about what people publish outside, because either through your open houses or when you're showing, you start to get a feel of what really is happening, right? You will start seeing open houses when you go. If you start seeing a lot of people come through, I mean, a good indicator of this market, again, doesn't matter what the media says, the global media or the US media says, doesn't matter. I was at a open house, today is Friday, Wednesday at 1 o'clock in Campbell. And we left the house and there was another family coming in to see at 1 o'clock, a random time on a random day in Campbell. The home has been sitting on the market for 24 days and you have a second family walking in at that same time, right? So to me, 3 months, there's actually, and that's why Oakland is important, that I specifically chose for that, because while we're seeing 0.6 in Fremont, and by the way, this is single family homes. I think that's an information for attached, so townhomes, condos. We are at 1.2, right? So townhome condos is double. I mean, relatively speaking, that means if you had a client looking for a townhome condo, you have a much better opportunity to sort of get a home, negotiate a home versus a single family home in Fremont. But it's a very different story when we look at the latest information, months of supply for Oakland, which is I think at 2.2,
Yeah.
but is improved. By the way, again, it all depends on how you process this information and what are you telling your clients, right? Because the storylining there is, for whatever reason, December, I think it was like 1.9, then it became I think 2, then it became 2.3, 2.5, 2.2. So it's all about sort of how do you understand that information, what is, now there's no right or wrong, it's how you process that information and how you're laying it in front of people, and it's all contextual. What happened 4 months back may not be reflective of what's happening now. Certainly on that specific one, and we'll talk a little bit more later, is to me that's trending in the right direction, in the sense that it is going in the same direction that as perhaps people, realtors see inventory not there, too much inventory, they're not putting homes on the market. If they don't put homes on the market, then sort of the inventory goes down, sellers, it sort of keeps doing this supply demand sort of thing. But that's why months of inventory to me is a very important metric, because that in my mind drives a lot of the action behavior, what you see out there in the market. So for me, 3 to 5 months is what I think is a balanced market. Beyond 5 months, it becomes a buyer's market. Anything below that, to me, the sellers still have a great chance of selling that home. This is where I feel that's a completely different topic, but why pricing is very important. That's a separate conversation. Pricing is very important. It doesn't matter if it's a seller's market. The Campbell home, I'm sitting 25, 27 days, 28 days today on the market, right? I just closed a home. This has been a very quiet year for me. I closed a home on the 8th of May. It was in San Ramon, and if we go to San Ramon just for a second, now the only thing is I don't know how to go back to that first page to be able to navigate quickly. But San Ramon, single family, I think townhomes I want to see, because no, it was a single family. So we got that home, we closed that home on Monday, last Monday, I think, May 8th. 0.5 months of inventory, even lesser than Fremont. It's a crazy market out there, right? We were going to open houses, there used to be lines. And I'm talking of right now, right? So again, don't trust what you read. Experience that for yourself. Either on the other side doing open houses, or if you're taking clients out, you be observant, right? There used to be lines outside every open house we were going in San Ramon for single family homes. Used to be lines in the newer part, not the older San Ramon, which is essentially 680 corridor, which by the way Bay East has a report for that. They call it 680 corridor. The left side of 680 going north is the sort of the older San Ramon. The right side is sort of the newer San Ramon. Same thing with Dublin. Older San Ramon is a little bit different, but the newer San Ramon area is very, very active. Yet we were able to get the home 85,000 below asking. It appraised for 85,000 above asking, above what we paid, right? Only because the realtor messed up. So that's why I said that's a separate topic. As long as you price it well, Oakland, it's the same thing. I've been tracking one home. I have a few properties in Oakland. There is one home I'm tracking because it's very close to a property I own. It's been on the market for about 35, 40 days. It was a conversation I was having with some of my neighbors, and that was a home I had said a month back when I think it came on the market that I'm looking at that home because I feel it's not being priced right for the market. Lo and behold, I think they waited until now, so now it will be interesting because, but see, this is again a separate topic. Why pricing is important is because now they just dropped the price by 100K. It should have been at that price to begin with, in my view. If you're dropping it now, it's already on the market for 30 days, leads to a very different behavior. To me, all of those, by the way, while they're separate topics, they're all interconnected. Everything's interconnected. So that's why it's important, if you're representing the seller, you're looking at these, you have to look at these numbers no matter what. Whether you're representing a buyer, you're representing a seller, because they are the numbers that you look at and you determine the price if you're representing the sellers. If you're representing the buyers, that's how you determine your offer price, right? In a way, because you know what's happening in the market. You're looking at what's happening, the activity in the market. That's how you prepare your offers. That's how you prepare your CMAs, and then subsequently your offers, right? So that's one big number. Any questions so far in terms of how you look at that number?
On that number, that means 2 weeks? 0.5 means 2 weeks?
Yeah, sort of, right? Half the month, right? Yeah.
What do you think is causing all this demand and these long lines of
Well, that's beyond my knowledge and intelligence, but I mean, again, to me, you can only, these are things that, and my area of expertise, but the way I look at these things is, it all depends on, by the way, who the buyers are, right? In fact, some of it is also surprising to me because many of these are first-time home buyers, and yet they're willing to, even in this market, willing to go to a level that, frankly, it's a strong competition. They're willing to compete. So I don't know where all of that is coming in. The fact, not sort of ignoring the fact that many of them are in tech, and tech, for our part, plays a bigger part, if you will, as compared to, so, the numbers are interesting, as in, one argument is, tech is a small part of the big job market is still strong, but I think it affects our area differently because we do have a lot more people employed in the tech sector, and the tech is seeing a lot of layoffs and things. That being said, many of these folks also earn extraordinary salaries, right? So if they've done the right things, they have saved up for the house, they have RSUs. Those who are employed, they do have jitters. I've had one client, by the way, last year was in the hindsight. A lot of these are always in the hindsight. The last 6 months of the last year was a great opportunity if you had the ability to take the risk, right? Because you didn't know where the market was headed in the new year. I also believe the home that is meant for you is meant for you. We did that offer 3 times on that house. The first time we did an offer, we rescinded that offer within an hour. We made the offer, the guy comes and says, yeah, this is when the whole layoffs had just started. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't feel good. I think I'm going to get laid off. Can we pull our offer back? We pull our offer back. 2 weeks later, but of course I told him, you know, I can do that, but go talk to your boss, figure out what's happening. You know, I've been there, done that. In my 23, 4, 5 years, I don't know how many years I've been here, I feel like I've crammed a lifetime of experiences, having gone through two major economic cycles, 2000, 2001, 2007, 2008. Having lost jobs, companies shutting down, all kinds of things, right? And so he goes back after conversations with me, comes back, says, okay, I think I'm okay. Let's put the offer back. We put the offer back. At that point, the sellers are not ready to execute on the offer. Offer expires. We go back 3 weeks later, they come back saying, okay, you asked for all of this, we've done all of this, we put the offer back, this time 70,000 below what we had offered the first 2 times, and they accepted, right? So last year was just crazy, you know, again, related to the information. By the way, that time, months of inventory, pretty high. I don't remember the exact numbers, but you buyers definitely had a chance as long as you were willing to take a risk. Most of these guys, first-time home buyers, do have a reasonable amount sort of saved because of their RSUs or whatever, right? So if home buying is important for them, I think they are not everyone, right? But that's why it's a market it's a little bit harder. I don't know. I mean, it's what's causing this behavior. You know, the stocks are back. I mean, you know, look at Google, look at Facebook, look at Amazon. All the stocks in the last month or so. I mean, Google has been, even today, it's been up, right? There was one home we were looking in Foster City. Got, I think, 12 offers. This was 2 months back, just after Facebook went up 25% after their you know, quarterly earnings, right? So I don't know. I mean, many of these who are employed may have enough reserves that the stock can play a part. You know, the numbers are obviously, you know, are all relative. What's big to one may not be as big to another. So there's activity. Did you have a question? Yeah.
So in the Bay Area, if it's more than 1 month, is that considered long?
Again, I think it's all relative of what is happening in the market, right? So in this case, I would say 1 month is still reasonable. Now, again, if I'm representing the sellers, if I'm looking at this, well, by the way, that's why this second number is important, right? To answer your question, that's why I look at these two numbers, right? If for single family homes in San Ramon, the average days on market is 18, essentially anything that goes beyond 18 for that month, something's off, right? Because you should have been in contract by now if you had done the right things. Well, that's why to me this number is also pretty important, is that's what I look at to say, what is that duration? If I'm representing the seller, I will, if I thought I'd done all the right things looking at all the numbers and we had priced it in a manner that followed that, and I didn't, if I was in San Ramon and I thought I'd done all the right things, my advice to my, by the way, that's another one, right? We saw the Campbell home, we saw for the same client a home in Willow Glen on Wednesday, that was at 2 o'clock. We go there was someone, we leave, or actually we didn't even leave, someone knocked on the door, are you done, right? So Willow Glen, on a Wednesday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you have these many people, right? That guy, I know him, and I will not share my opinion of him, but does a lot of business in Rivermark in Santa Clara, the one representing the sellers. Years of experience, drops the price within 7 days. And I'm going, first of all, because I had done for them, they were really interested in that house. I did a CMA, I looked at it, and I'm going, the average price, the median price, right? And some of it we will, and that's why I'm just looking at, I think we should move from here to that, because that does have a wealth of information that's the details are there. And to me, I think you should always use these in combination, not in isolation, but always good to use something until you get to that combination stage. There was nothing I found that warranted his price to begin with. He had priced that home at like 1.45 thousand square feet home in Willow Glen. And there was, when I looked at the sold, the pendings, the active, there was nothing that warranted a 1.45 price. And in 7 days, he dropped it to a 1.25, which I still think is on the higher side. But my point is, and then when I was chatting with him, he said, oh, we got feedback, we were priced, higher. I'm going, yeah, of course, because you're not looking at data. You should be looking at this data, you should be looking at this data, you should be looking at, because if that was the case, and if you had price right, and let's assume this is San Jose, Willow Glen, 18 days, then for 18 days, you shouldn't really be doing something, right? But you did, which means something was off. So to answer your question, whether 1 month is, it all depends, right? In this example, San Ramon, 18 days, if you've done everything right, again, a lot of these answers unfortunately have to be gray. They cannot be black and white answers because it's all relative. But 18 days would be something that you would hang on to. And then if you're beyond that and you're representing, let's say, a buyer, and you're looking at this home that's sitting on the market for 21 days, yeah, something's off, right? And in case of my folks that we got that single family home, the off was, I think he would price, again, you have to determine that based on that specific scenario. In his case, they had not done an open house. There was no sign outside, so there was no marketing, and you immediately realized, oh, that's when every other house is getting a fish market line, and this is not, is because of that, and you can decide, I think it's time that you can, that's why we went 65, 80, 85,000 below asking, and they accepted it, right? So it all, I think this number becomes very important, is this tells you for that specific segment, how many days the average home is sitting on the market, and you have to assess that in that context of that, right? Now, one of this thing that I wish this report had, which by the way that report has, all of this is great, but to me I think the average price per square feet is a better indicator. That's missing in this report. But this already gives you a good amount of information. Those two numbers are very important when you assess.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I'm sorry I have to run out. But in your professional opinion, you say you have many years of experience. Do you think the market?
I only have 5 years of
Do you
experience.
think the market has bottomed down now, or?
See, those things I feel.
Because that's the first question.
To me, it's all in the. You never know until you've passed that stage, right?
Yeah.
The way I'm seeing the market right now,
Yes.
we had the bottom last year in the last 6 months, depending on which, different cities were at a different point, right? Every city, other than Oakland and perhaps San Francisco, I've not looked at in as much detail. Those are still, I think, struggling, especially I think in the condo townhome segment, which
Right.
those have a lot of. Most of the cities, for example, I mean this Foster City home I referenced earlier, 2 weeks back when we were there, that was a fixer-upper. Again, all of this is tied together, right? You do when I did the CMA, for a normal house, not a fixer-upper, for a normal house, based on that, I thought that home would have been worth, let's say, 1.2,
Okay.
right? 1.2, you backtrack from there, now you have to put money to fix it, right? And again, the estimates that I had, either through my experience or talking to a contractor, landed somewhere in the 120K range. Home was priced for 900K, right? 900K plus 120 gets you somewhere in the 1.1 mark, right? And then that's your sweat equity, so it sort of adds up, so 1.2, right? Apparently, of course, not the apparent part is not the price. It did get 13 offers, but apparently it went for 1.3. Now, if someone is really, okay, 1.3, so what am I missing?
Where's the
right?
logic, yeah.
Where's the logic? But anyhow, sometimes you throw aside the logic, but that just tells you that the market is active. Every home that we've been looking, or most of the homes that are going back to that whatever average days on market, as long as they're within that, most homes are getting multiple offers. Now, where it's different than, say, the peak of last year, of that March to, I mean, again, all of that, you didn't know if you were in the peak
Yeah.
until you passed it,
Right.
right? It's always backwards looking. So it is different in the sense of if it was also seeing that, I had a home in Brookwell in Fremont. I think we got 120 people on one day, some 130 people on the Sunday, something like that, some crazy amount of people. We got 13 offers, which for that time was a shameful performance because everyone else was getting 35 offers, right?
Right.
It was crazy. That difference that's a change you're seeing. The number of offers could be lesser, still multiple offers, which still means sellers are still having a choice of choosing who to work with. There is a difference in the sense, and we, again, by the way, Bay East sends, and I've requested Harshita to start sending us those videos every month. They send you what is called as a weather report, again, for the Bay East cities. And if you saw the one that came out, I think a week back, and Harshita had also posted that or sent to our emails, most places are down from the peak price, anywhere from say 9 to 15, 20%, right? Depending on the city and price-wise, right? However, as we now know, to your question, the interest rates are up. I think last year around that time it was about 3.5%. Now we are talking of 6.5%, 7%, right? Almost double. So if that was the case, when they talk about sort of, and you know that better, right? But it's something like for every 0.25% interest rate increase, the rule of thumb is your price needs to drop 100K to keep the payment same, right? There is no way that math is adding up anymore, right? For a 9% drop, but for a 100% interest rate increase, yet people are doing it,
Right.
right? But last year, that Pleasanton home that I said we made the offer 3 times, and that home was listed 300K more. We made the offer. By the time it came down, originally it was listed 300K more. We still made the offer, which was I think 200K below asking,
Right.
and still got it because there was just no one was coming to the open houses. The open houses, I think we used to talk in the team meetings at that point. Oh, we had a great open house. I got 5 people,
Yes.
6 people. Very relative, right? So I don't. The sort of the easy answer is: are we past the low? It seems like it, depending on which city. If you're in Oakland, you'll be saying, "Oh my goodness, what's happening?" Right? I don't see as many people. You're in Fremont, you're in San Ramon. Oh yeah, you're way past that. You've actually, but the prices haven't quite reached the peak, but they're definitely much higher than what they were in the last 6 months of the last year.
Good. Thank you.
Right.
Very good.
Yeah, so I mean, along with that information, now you do get, again, and they give you 2 flavors of it. Again, this is really related to, month over month of this number sold and listings. Really, I think what there is, if there is anything that you need to capture is, are you seeing the listings increase? Because again, that has a factor of, this is how they're calculating months of inventory. What's that trend now? This is why I said, to me, I think that is fine. I really like to focus. I would have loved to have the trend of this, and I would have loved to have a trend of this rather than this. Because, by the way, the reason I don't care about this number is because list prices are notional, right? Now, again, largely I feel the KW culture, we don't play games as much because that's how we sort of learn in this company. I always try to price it as close. By the way, this Brookville example I gave, I had to price it lower than what I would have loved to price because otherwise I would have been an odd man out in the competition, right? because the competition loves to brag. They love to brag that, by the way, as they say, really the skill set of the realtor is in the times that are hard. In easy times, even an idiot can put up a house and it sells, right? You don't have to do anything, right? So they didn't care. If you price it high, people were still coming in, the difference was lesser. You price it low, there were realtors, I get postcards at my house 3 times a month, bragging about their number 1 in the country and whatnot. It's just useless.
How is it number 1 locally?
Yeah. It's they'll keep advertising, and everyone is number 1. So I'm going, okay, you know what? You guys need to talk to each other because you're saying you're number 1 and you're saying you're number 1. I don't know which data you're looking at. It's insane. But so this number really doesn't mean much because it's really off of that list price, and list price, unless you've done, it's a notional price, right? It's really the selling price. It's what the buyers are willing to pay is what the price of that house is. Doesn't matter what you do. That's why it's important, by the way, you on the selling side, you need to sort of price it right. So they'll have this, of course, single family and townhomes is sort of the same split. You're really visually all you're seeing month over month, is the inventory going up and down. That's why I would have liked to have that. I would have liked to see the average price number per square feet in there, right? Oops. And then the second sort of thing they do say, median sales price. The challenge is it's hard to read this information right here. Again, as it was covered in the sort of the summary data. It's good to know 2 million to 1.7. Again, see, this is going back to Jitu, your sort of thing. Last year this was really amidst the peak. You can visually see that answers your question. Are we at the bottom? This is really, and this is, you seeing it, you will not, you can only sort of, from a data perspective, you will only know after it has passed. From an observation perspective, you absolutely know it when you are, again, doing the open house, or, it might be very different, by the way, for commercial. This is all, of course, with the residential lens in place, right? Average days on market, same thing. You can see for whatever the San Ramon this time, look at where the average days were for the single family vis-a-vis, this is for condos, right? Huge spike. Now, by the way, that goes back to your earlier question, 2 months, 3 months, right? 60 days, relative, very, very quiet. Nothing was happening this time. Look at how steep it came down to in March, from probably around 65 days to maybe 10 days, right? Same thing with single family. Single family didn't have as much swings, but still had, you had a great opportunity again in the hindsight comparing these same numbers right now. Of course, that's why I like average days on market. I would have loved to have a per square feet feel. Overbids is just that, again, that's a notional number in terms of list 2. It's all against a list price which you can't control, we can't control, right? So that's really with this market. Now we are at about 45, so 15 minutes. If I can borrow, and you have, right? So this is Bay East. Again, I wanted you guys, I don't know if you guys have logged into Bay East, if you have an account. You guys don't have a computer, but are you logged in?
Yeah.
What's that?
You don't even have to log in, just go bay.org.
Yeah, and now they have started doing that. Earlier, I think that it was hidden behind your login, but no, not this one. So just go to Bay East, just go to bayeast.org or whatever that website is, right? bayeast.org.
Yeah, bay.org.
Yeah.
So,
Right, and then you go to community information. So community information, anyone who's tracking that, it's on community information and housing, real estate housing, one below.
Oh, okay.
Stats, right? Now go to map.
This one?
Yeah. Right, and these are all the cities they cover, right? So these are all the cities that they will have information for And that's a lot of cities, right? So let's pick up Oakland so that we're looking at this information. So go to Oakland. Oakland is here. Right? And then once you're in Oakland, are you guys there?
Oh, using a map.
Yeah, using a map, right? Are you in Oakland?
Yes.
On the left side, you will see again now, this is where you will see housing market reports. Right? This is where again you have archived reports, which is past reports, attached reports, detached. This one is attached, right? Attached is condos and townhomes, detached is single family homes. And archived, and by the way, this is what they cover in a very, I love their videos, the monthly videos, because they go through in 3 minutes, they cover the whole thing, right? And so that's that report. If you open it up for the latest one, as such, by the way, the archive doesn't matter because you already have, they provide every report and summary of, I think 1 year in any
Yeah,
case.
1 year.
So that's pretty good, right? So I think, by the way, that's where I was saying there's a slight disconnect. We don't have Oakland here. Most of the times they're pretty similar. There was 1 month, I think it was last month, where there was a big difference between what our KW report was showing in terms of the months of inventory and what Oakland was showing. Oakland was showing, I think, 2.9 months of last month, 2.9 months of inventory, and our report was showing like 1.4. There was a huge difference, right? But for most part, they're similar. You know, this time I know the numbers because I just sent this report to a few clients of mine. This month it's 2.2 months of inventory right now. Our report in KW Advisors for condos, townhomes said 2 months. So slight difference, but margin of error, not a whole lot, right? Now, in this specific report, what I like about this report, again, first of all, they will summarize things up top, right? So again, I think that's great. It's a quick summary. You can utilize that summary when you communicate with your clients. You know, most clients, by the way, even if the people, that's again, maybe it's my limited experience, people I deal with, they love to share, like I share, I love data, I share, but most people don't read everything, right? So they say they are a data person, but they don't read everything, right? They want to pretend that they want to show that they want to sound like intelligent, right? So it's really, I think, for us to summarize a few things because really they don't read. But our job is to sort of send it to them and be aware of what, if the questions come, what to answer, right? So again, months of supply, we talked about that. That's a key factor. The good part is you actually see that they actually provide the graphs up top, right, of in active, pending, sales, all of that. You can see the trend right in front of your eyes of what it was doing in terms of, while I don't have specs, I think I do have specs and I need to start using them. I just turned 50, by the way, on Friday, last Friday. So I have a problem. My mental age and my physical age are in conflict. So I like to not wear specs, but I think I am at a point where I do. So again, you can see last year, even at the peak of the market, Oakland, condominium, townhomes. Now again, this is why it's important because it's historic, right? It's not as if Oakland townhome condo segment has changed dramatically per se, right? It was at about 1.6, 1.5 to now about 2.2. Is it high? Relatively speaking, yes, but that's how their performance is. So if I'm talking to my clients, one of the things I'm saying to them is, again, if we are in this townhome condo segment, it's a different performance, but it's not a very outlandishly different performance, right? It's very similar. So that's why that column is important. That column is important to be able to see the trends of, you could easily see as the market was shifting, 1.6, 1.5, sort of similar by June, which after the rate increase that happened, the big rate increase in May, suddenly it went up about 50%, right? 2.1, 2.3, 2.4, 2.83. And then it started sort of shifting as people internalized sort of what is happening, very again reflective of this days on market, right? This days on market that, again, this is San Ramon, but if you have to use it, it sort of was shifting the swings were quite significant. I have no idea, by the way, why it went down to 1.9. Maybe the buyers, I have no idea why buyers just were purchasing something or there were less homes, no idea, but it did drop and again then started going back up until February, and then again in line with the broader market, I think it's coming down. The demand is. By the way, the other reason, especially with Oakland and San Francisco, I feel is a little bit different than bulk of the other places, is I think they play off of each other. San Francisco is going through a really rough time. I was reading an article, especially commercial. I was reading an article, there was some building that is selling for like 73% of its price.
Yeah.
That's just insane. There are broader trends that are happening in San Francisco that I think affect Oakland residential market.
Right. So on this note, I know we all are in real estate, and there's always a stigma about commercial and residential. Commercials for people who have lots of money and people who just want to buy big buildings. Honestly, that's not necessarily the case. Those who you may know as investors, you should reach out to them and say, hey, there's a lot of opportunities coming up in commercial properties. As the brother mentioned, they dropped by 60-70% in some areas. So it's a good time to buy condos or even large properties combined with a couple of families together. You can easily buy a rental property somewhere, a condo where you can rent it out as a grocery store or a coffee shop, or that's what I mean by condo. When we have residential condos, commercial also has condo where you can take one small unit, 800 square feet or 1,000 square feet, and rent that out as a salon shop, for example, or a grocery shop, or a nail cutting shop, whatever you call them. So those opportunities lies, and that's a constant, regular income. And a lot of people I know make lots of money in that area. And all of you should reach out to your prospective investors, so-called, who has already a single family, but they may have some money. They say, hey, I want to invest some of my money. Anybody ever mention the word investment with you? Reach out to them and say, hey, there's some opportunities. Commercials are dropping, so are you interested in buying something? And it's going to get worse. Just take one more minute of your time, brother. In September, October timeframe, most of the commercial loans are maturing. And I see in the market very scary situation where a lot of people literally giving out the keys and say, yeah, sell it or give it away to somebody. I don't want it.
Right.
Because they cannot maintain the payments.
Yeah.
So look out for these opportunities.
After Jitu's plug for commercial. No, but that's true. I think, again, investment, real estate offers just a broad opportunity. It doesn't matter whether it's residential or commercial.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, in here, the supply increase, days on market increase, yet the price is still selling above asking. So it doesn't affect.
No, again, that's what I'm saying, right? Price, that's because you could have that, you could have the average price that people have started become, that average number, you're looking at the percentage, right? Sale percentage,
Okay, yeah.
the last number.
Right.
Yeah, that number is really, off the list price, right? And the list price is what you advise your client to list it as, right? So that number really, to me, is not as scientific as it needs to be. The real numbers really lie in the days on market and your supply, right? And of course the average per square feet rate, right? So that's where I want to go next, which is, you'll start seeing, so months of supply we've discussed, we've talked about average days on market, which is I think the fourth column from the right. And again, that's trending in the right direction. You can see, hand in hand with the inventory numbers. We had a really long days of supply, December, January, and it's trending down month over month, right? Again, the messaging really to my clients has been, especially for Oakland, I am getting them to sort of think about if they're willing to sell. This is a good time because it is not too far off from sort of the peak numbers, if you will, right? If you look at it, last year peak, average days on market 26 days, we are at 28 days. Months of inventory 1.6, 2.2, right? Numbers are not that far off. Average price, and this is where the prices have definitely dropped. Miriam, to your, last year the average price was 705 sale price. right? Average sale price was 753, median price, by the way, this is a little bit of stats. Where possible, median prices are better reflection than an average price. Do you know why? And does someone want to take a stab?
Because sometimes one home is completely off the
Right.
chart.
Yeah, exactly, right? Average swings can be one home sold for 1.5 when it should have sold really for 1.1, everyone, or another home sold for 500K when it should have sold for 750K, can swing your average numbers. The median really looks at which of these sales, what's the common sort of thing. So the median numbers tend to be more realistic than average. That being said, there is also a case to be made that when you have large enough data, the averages tend to gravitate towards what it needs to be, right? Because then the effect of that outlier is not as much. So it all depends on the data set. That's why medians are usually, where available, are better. In our market report, we just tend to focus on the averages, not so much on the median. Bay East does give you median numbers, and that's why it's great to focus on that. That being said, if you have averages and the sales numbers are large enough, that's okay. The outlier effect of these outliers is not as much, right? But that's what is an important number. So when I'm looking at sort of the average dollars, again, the active sites, per se, these numbers don't matter to me, at least, because I think what matters when I'm looking at from a buyer perspective, and if I have to see the home, I have to make an offer on it, I'm looking at the sales numbers, because the active is really whatever someone has thought it needs to be, right? But the sold is the reality, because that's what the buyers actually ended up paying, right? To buy that house. So that average sales number, which is the second last column from the right, again is a good number to keep in mind. Now that number, you can see sort of, sometimes it's counterintuitive why that average sales number was 631 last month when it was 611 this month, as in April, the last available information versus for March. It just could have been the composition of the townhomes market that were on the market at that point. Some higher value homes or some higher prices came about. It can happen, but for most part, they do reflect a month-over-month trend that was, again, consistent with what you were seeing. If you look at the November information, 582, December 564, started increasing again, average price, which meant multiple offers, more prices, more competition. It's reflective of that. 587, suddenly it became 631 again. I don't have an answer for that, why, but still broadly the trend was in the same manner, which is as the inventory dropped, that inventory number became less, means competition increased, buyers might be making bigger offers to get the house, faster closes, things like that. Faster closes as in getting into contract faster, right, which is a lower based on market, right? So that's that section. I think one more, we are actually at time, I don't know how everyone's looking, but one of the other sort of things, these two tables also do matter at the bottom, market trends, because they do give you, while the above table is month over month, the table below gives you a year over year number, right? And year over year, you can see, again, list price I will ignore, but sales price, again, we were just talking about what is the change that you're seeing from the peak in April. Typically, you have seen everywhere about 9%. So this is the percentage change of the median sale price, sort of the middle number. You can see it's changed from April 22 to 23 about 8.16%. right? So the prices have dropped about 9% in the Oakland condo townhome segment in the last 1 year, which is again broadly what it has followed the trend, even when the interest rates have gone up doubled, right, in the same period of time. But this is a great one because you can look at that year over year and say, oh, but between 21 and 22, it increased 7%, right? 21 to 20, I don't know why it dropped 8% again, because that was a year that was post-COVID and many, those numbers for 21 always are a little bit of a suspect because in 2020 we had COVID and it was all over the place, right? But that tells you again percentage change on that sales price. Average days on market, again you can see it gives you a year over year trend. That's an important table which is in the middle. And then I think the last table is important for again completely different reason. Now you don't have to message everything to your client. So far what we have talked is good enough in terms of messaging, but this is also important for you to be aware of is because it depends on, again, same thing, depending if you're representing the seller or the buyer, in which segment are you, just to see the performances, again, compared what this table used to be. I don't know, I think we got it fixed, I believe, Alam, because this really meant, again, to give you a trend of year over year, year to date. So what it does is, it tells you, for example, if we were to look at 500K, less than 500K ranges of homes in the condo townhome segment, in 2019, year to date, 133 homes had sold. 2020, 125, by the way, that was, at this point, we were in the midst of COVID, right? March to May, this is April, so March, April was sort of 125. Last 2021, 250, 2022, 200, year to date. Now 2019 was a normal year per se. So if we say we are having less inventory, guess what? In 2019, we keep saying in our team meetings, right? Oh, the problem is inventory is not there, but it's no different than what it was in 2019. Number wise, it's exactly the same. Right? So at least for the 500K segment homes. So this just tells you, how a specific home, where it is lying, are you seeing now year over year? If the prices were appreciating, some of the homes that were, last year, for example, this time, the conversation was, as compared to 2021, we are seeing about 15%, 20% increases in prices, which meant a home that was 800K was now suddenly worth, or $1 million, let's say, just for easier purposes, was now worth 1.2, right? A 20% increase. It put it in a completely different segment. Again, so a lot of these numbers, sometimes you have to sort of assess. Don't take the numbers for numbers. Yeah, there are some trends, but there are also some of these that you have to handle in context of what is happening in the market. So if there is a 10% drop, a 1.1 home last year may be worth under $1 million, right? So I don't know specifically where that will reflect, but this tells you at least some story of the inventory as such. Overall, see overall numbers if you look at it. Now overall, if you look at it, the story holds, which is in 2019, at this point, in Oakland, you had 608 homes to sell. So you had a little bit more inventory versus now at 493, right? So relative to 2019, we have less inventory, but relative to sort of itself, month over month, we have relatively higher inventory as compared to last year, right? Total number. Okay, so that's really what I had. I don't know if it was useful, but sure.
Very useful.
Thanks for presenting.
Thank you.
So if I have to write an offer to use the average price square foot. So
Yeah, yeah,
this is
we
just to
were
use this one,
Yeah.
to save.
This is
I
for
was not
control.
Because that's,
I think that would help.
that's information for all the homes that I've sold. They don't publish the media.